They got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems. I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back. Tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something. That's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression is all that I wanted. The phone and affection.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's the one and only Dark Waters, James Williams. I kind of feel like I'm a big deal in the paranormal community. I may not be, you know what I'm saying? But part of me wants to say, I know a few people, I did a few things. And when it comes to talking about Bigfoot and Dogman, when I find people who actually know what the hell they're talking about, I get excited. And you guys know I've talked to thousands of witnesses, but it takes some time to get to really, really good guests. And I'm feeling like, based on the pre interview with these two gentlemen I'm bringing to you tonight, I have some phenomenal guests on my hands. So I'm hoping that you guys will enjoy this conversation. I don't know where it's going to go because it's not pre planned. We did a little chitter chatting, but we're not planning anything. It's not, you know, scheduled out. It's not mapped out conversation. We just gonna let it flow, and you guys know how it goes down when that happens. Next thing you know, we're talking about strippers and Bigfoots and aliens, and it just goes crazy. But it's a fun interview. With that being said, I would like to introduce Brett Eichenberger and Toby Johnson. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing today?
Doing great, Dark. Thanks for having us tonight.
I'm happy to have you guys, man. I really am. I love talking Bigfoot. I love talking Dogman. I love learning. So I'm gonna start off with saying this. I'm humbling myself because I do think I know a little bit, but I want to learn from you guys and get your opinions on the Sasquatch phenomenon. But before we go there, first of all, I need you guys to run down to my audience, and I need you to understand when I say audience. Right now, we are like 67,000 on YouTube. We're 3,000 on the private membership. So let's just say 70,000 people. I need you to run down for them what you currently have going on, what kind of other interviews you've done recently, and the projects that you have. And after we do that, we're going to be like a ball shot out of a cannon talking about these big hairy monsters. So, Brett, why don't you start off and talk about the documentary that you guys are working on?
Okay. So we've got a documentary. It's been out for about a month. It's on most of the major video on demand platforms like Amazon, iTunes, Vudu, Google Play, YouTube. You can rent it on YouTube, and it's called A Flash of Beauty: Bigfoot Revealed. This is our first chapter in right now what is going to be a series of two chapters. The first chapter is going to be covering the flesh and blood, if you will, of Bigfoot, and the second chapter is going to be covering the paranormal side of things. And what sets us apart from other Bigfoot documentaries is we are approaching it more as an eyewitness, story-driven film, as opposed to, the reality type in the field film, which we all are fans of and we love. We just wanted to do something a little bit different, just to give those out there that are interested in Bigfoot documentaries, that eyewitness firsthand account and that feel. And one of the other things that we do in this documentary is we share a lot of new evidence, some very interesting, thoughts, theories, and ideas. One of the most important things that I believe we get into is the emotional impact that an eyewitness goes through after having a sighting like this. And we make a strong point that people that have these experiences are never the same, and we show some of that, some of those repercussions, I guess, if you will, of seeing and or witnessing something that quote unquote does not exist. So I really encourage everybody that's listening to this program to check it out, because I think there's something for everyone. I feel like we represent the everyday average, if you will, individual who has had an extraordinary experience in the wilderness.
I'm telling you, based on what I saw from the trailer, I'm actually excited about watching it, and buying it tonight and watching it before I go to bed. All right, now with that being said, Toby, let's spin over real quick. And guys, we just doing some housekeeping for the audience. I need y'all to chill, hold your horses. I want to spin over and I want to talk about this Owl Moon Lab book that you have out. Before you say anything, well, Owl Man, is it Owl Moon Lab? No, it's Owl Moon Lab. And there was this guy that was calling on to all my radio shows a while ago called Owl Man that was talking about these giant owls. So when I saw that, I was like, I hope this is not the Owl Man because I'm gonna curse him out. I can't stand him. But with that being said, you're not the Owl Man. You're Toby. But tell us a little bit about the book and how you got into that book and what made you decide to write it.
Well, sure. As we were explaining before in the pre-interview, I started this in the mid 2000s, looking into these mysteries when we found a single trackway in the little town of Thurston, Oregon, and I went down the rabbit hole headlong and found out that Sasquatch is multi-layered and perhaps even multi-dimensional. So that's a long story. Fast forward to around 2018, and by this time, my full-time hobby is looking into habituators or extended experiencers who claim to have Sasquatch in their own backyard, or they can go to a section of property where there's a hot spot and have continued experiences. And so I found myself knee deep in a little place called Cottage Grove, Oregon, and put pen to paper, broke out every recorder, camera equipment I had, told the property owners I'd love to move in. They said sure, and so I studied it for about a year and a half straight, and we had a lot of incredible stuff happen, a lot of forensic evidence, a lot of audio evidence, but the greatest evidence of all was how it changed me as a person. When you find out that the supernatural, the paranormal, is not only real, but it can follow you home, things get real. And so this book's a little bit different because of the fact that it's also now in this documentary, The Flash of Beauty. But it also has it's an interactive book. So just to plug it a second, if as you read along in the book, you have these QR codes embedded. So you go to the chapters, you scan your phone, and it actually goes to the field evidence of the audio and the video from that site. But fast forward to the documentary now. This is, as you said, a beautiful documentary. And as a guy that was invested, since the mid 2000s into Bigfoot documentaries, folks, this is something totally different, totally unique. I mean, the name alone should tell you that it is Flash of Beauty. When's the last time you heard of a Bigfoot movie called that? And it's just an absolute privilege to be involved with it.
Absolutely. Now we can get down to some business and have some fun. So let's imagine a pie on a table in front of us, guys. All right, we're gonna start slicing this Bigfoot pie up. Let's start with some of the simpler stuff. The whole flesh and blood, Bigfoot in the woods, Bigfoot experience and encounters that people have had. Talk to me about some of the encounters that stand out in your mind that your witnesses have had, like the ones that are prominent encounters. Now, I don't want you to go into all the stuff in your documentary. I don't give away too much, but what I've discovered is over time, you talk to so many witnesses, you have an encounter that sticks out. But sometimes that encounter is it's not something picked up a log and threw it at them, but there was something about how that creature interacted with that witness that was so profound that you learned a lesson from it. Talk to me about one of those encounters.
Oh boy, this is a tough one. I feel like we've got amazing encounters in this film. One we were talking about earlier today, actually, Toby and I were talking about was there's a guy named Larry Turner who has had 7 different sightings. And this is in Western Oregon in the Oregon Coast Range. And Larry Turner, because of all of his sightings, this is a guy that spends more time outside than he does inside. And he goes camping any chance he can get. And where he's located, he actually lives about 5 miles from me. He's half hour, 45 minutes from some pretty pristine wilderness. And so he went out one night and he set up infrared alarms, and he set them up at 7 feet. So anything that is 7 feet or higher will set them off. So he's not getting false alarms and whatnot. And so sure enough, in the middle of the night, this alarm goes off and it wakes him up, and the next thing he knows, he's got a hand cradling his head underneath his head, the thumb wrapping around the chin. And it's kind of like, it's almost like a doctor giving you a physical or something to see how far your head will rotate back and forth. This giant hand is doing that to Larry's head through the tent. And I don't want to give too much more away because it's if there's a scary part of the documentary, this is it. But that's one that sticks out in my mind. We've talked to a lot of people who have had these experiences, this physical contact, and none of it has ever turned out that I've heard, anyways. None of it's ever turned out bad, if you will. Outside of being like paralyzingly terrifying. But there is a question, that remains: why? Why are they? This head holding thing is not uncommon. It happens. Why are they doing it? What are they looking for? They'll touch other limbs, so on and so forth. So it's like, I doubt it's Bigfoot physical therapy. I think it's got to be something else. I don't know if they're just interested in how we move and whatnot. And some of these individuals talk about sleep paralysis and not being able to defend themselves, just being kind of frozen in fear. So that's a pretty interesting interesting thought or interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
No, it really is, and I've heard of witnesses who've been. Well, I've had witnesses, not heard. I've spoken to witnesses who've been in tents and they've had similar activity. Nothing touching anyone's head, but literally their feet being touched, their ankles being rotated, toes being plucked, which is, to me, that's horrifying in itself. Um, I mean, that's absolute horrifying. And then things like poking the tent right where their head is and pressing that vinyl of the tent and touching their head like it knows where your head is while you're
Mm-hmm.
sleeping in the tent. Then they would reorientate their body in a different direction and it would come around again and poke the tent right where their head was. So I don't know what it is about
Mm-hmm.
these creatures and their curiosity. Part of me wants to believe it's maybe like a juvenile Sasquatch that has an opportunity to get close to a human being and is saying, okay, I'm going to go over here and mess with him. I don't have the evidence to prove the age of them, but I just think it seems like kind of juvenile behavior. The one thing that stands out to me is if it wanted to hurt somebody, they could clearly hurt them without it being a problem. And they tend not to.
Mm-hmm.
They really tend not to. What are you guys' thoughts on that and why?
Well, I think you're right. There is this curiosity, almost like prankster-esque, very teenage-esque. The activity that happened in the Al Moon Lab was like frat rituals or frat boy behavior at a university. Pranksters, just imagine the guys from Jackass, but 8 feet tall, a lot more body hair. So it was those kind of moves, and once you wrap your head around the fact that this isn't dangerous, there's a lot of fun to be had. And I know that may sound unusual to the listening audience, but I slept outside for the better part of a year all alone, right next to these things. And there was a lot of strangeness, and a couple times there was some scary parts, but for the most part it was just very teenage type behavior.
Yeah, they didn't drag you off or anything like that, huh?
No, no, no. I had a good looking brunette that did that, so that was okay.
I've had witnesses that in California, bro, that had these illegal marijuana growing fields, right? And this is probably one of the craziest Bigfoot encounters I've ever heard. And I'll never forget it because the guy calls me. He's like, man, I want to talk to you about what happened at our fields, but, I need to call you from another number. So this guy calls me from a burner phone. And he says, I want to tell you about what happened. And first of all, they started off and they realized they had a black panther out in the woods where their fields were. And he's like, man, we have a panther. And I was like, man, ain't no panthers in California. Man, what are you talking about? He said, I'm telling you, we had a panther, right? So they go through the process of trying to kill this panther. And then they, at their little kind of makeshift hut that they built, where they would harvest the marijuana and then package it and get ready to dry it out and do all the rest of the stuff they had to do, he said, man, we started having this activity where something would just walk up and bang on the side of the hut and just like slap it, bang and slap it. And it would happen every night while we were in there taking care of our business. And I was like, well, bro, what do you think it was? He's, oh, I'm going to tell you what it was. So fast forward like 3 weeks later, one of the guys are out there, and they ended up starting a fire, and some of the marijuana caught on fire. And so he's like, bro, he's like, James, I tell you no lie. It's like, bro, I tell you no lie, bro. Listen. He's like, man, this thing ended up getting high. Like the smoke, started getting high off the smoke. And it was just there beating on the tree, stepping out, beat on the tree, step out, beat on the tree.
Ooh.
And it was like, it was a joy in being high. And I was like, bro, you lying to me. And I had to go back and talk to his partners. These guys are straight up hardcore marijuana growers, illegal growers. Had to talk to all his partners. When I talked to the other two guys, it was like, nah, bro, that's what happened. I was like, man, that's the craziest Bigfoot story I've ever heard. But I had three witnesses verify the same thing. And one guy was not excited about talking about it at all. He was like, bro, I don't even want to talk about this. I don't want you repeating this publicly on the YouTube. And I was like, bro, I'm gonna tell a story, but I'm gonna take some of the stuff out of it. Anyway, I told the story. It was a funny story, man. But a high
Wow.
Bigfoot because they started a fire and ended up burning marijuana, man. But I just wanted to put a story in there in the middle of the stories that you guys were telling. All right, let's go on to the next thing. So you mentioned the sleep paralysis, right? And people who experience sleep paralysis. Are we talking about from a perspective when they're actually out in the woods in their tent? Or we're talking about people who are back at home and have encounters around their property and they're in their beds at home? Which perspective of sleep paralysis are we talking about? Because in my opinion, it's two different. One is more of a supernatural, spiritual aspect, and the other one is maybe something standing there staring at you and you're scared to death. What perspective are we
Right.
talking about? What kind of location?
You want that one, Brett?
Yeah, that's okay. I can't get into this too much because we just don't get into it really hardly at all in the documentary. But I think it's more of a frozen in fear paralysis as opposed to you're about to be abducted paralysis
Mm,
or night terror paralysis. Um, I mean, I like I said before, I have heard stories from witnesses, but we don't have any in this particular film. But I've heard stories of folks just not being able to move,
mm,
while these encounters are happening. And so I don't know if this goes back to something that we can talk more about, which is the
mm,
infrasound and whatever it is that they use to stop people in their tracks.
mhm.
And I know Tove has a story about that he can get into as well. So it could be related. It probably is related.
Yeah. Well, what he's alluding to perhaps is, when you get involved with Sasquatch research, one of the things that you do is you go walking in some crazy places, and there may be consequences of where you step. And on one of those occasions, above near the Almoon Lab property, there exists an old logging road where, I went up with 5 or 6 people, and by the end of the night, only two of us were left. And so, literally, minute by minute, people were being picked off this mountain by this invisible wall of fear. I had, grown men that were on EMT services up here in the Mackenzie River that were telling me crazy stuff like, why am I going to cry? I need to get rid of my gun. I'm going to be sick. They're huddling down on the ground, almost like they're hiding from something. As far as I knew, these men were passing every psychological exam the state offered them in order to do their job. So it didn't make any sense. But the fact is, we're up there looking for Bigfoot. So you hear these kind of stories all the time. And that's just one of the things that you just kind of have to wrap your mind around. Is this physical? Is this non physical? Is this supernatural? I tend to think it's a little both. It's an unknown science of some kind. I don't believe it's just infrasound because whatever they're doing, they're able to pinpoint it to individuals and get inside their head and say things to them. And that's an interesting thing for just an animal to do.
Yes, absolutely. We had a field researcher right at the end of my camera project, the Dogman Cams project. I had a field researcher that was going out into the field, and he went out into the field with an EMF detector on him. Now we know this is active Bigfoot territory. It's documented. I mean, hundreds of people have seen on camera live, watched the Bigfoot step out, open his mouth, bat its eyes. Everybody saw it, right? Um, so we know it's an active area. Well, he goes out into the field with an EMF detector, um, and it starts going off. Like he's standing out. You see him on camera. He's standing out in the middle of the field. He's got like a back camera, like a little GoPro on his back, GoPro on his chest, and it was weird because we were watching him. The EMF detector goes off, and he says, "Man, I feel weird. I feel really, really weird." And then he just turns around, and I think he had been in doing. Normally, the experiments would go like 2-3 hours. He just turns around and goes back in the house and gets on the
Mm,
internet and starts talking. And we like, "Yo, what you doing?" And he's like, "Man, bro, like I just wanted to go inside." I'm like, "Well, why did you come inside?"
mhm,
"Bro, something made me want to go inside." So he goes back out, orders a oh, that night when he goes to bed, he wakes up with a nosebleed, like his nose is pouring blood. He has bad dreams, and so he decides, okay, I'm gonna try and do something different. So he gets a tactical vest, and he puts some metal inside the vest. He gets a helmet. He puts this protective lining inside of the helmet that will protect from EMF.
mhm,
Goes back out into the field. Goes back out into the field. The EMF detector goes off. This time he stays out there. No nosebleed, no nothing. I mean, he didn't experience anything freaky or weird. He stayed out there, but then the activity got real aggressive, almost as if it was like they were telling him, okay, they were doing something to him to get him to leave. And when it didn't work,
mhm,
then they started getting physically aggressive to the point to where he
mhm,
had to pull his weapon. He was like, okay, y'all need to back off, blah, 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 blah. And people sometimes refer to that as, I think, call it infrasound, but we
mhm,
weren't hearing a sound. There was no sound at all.
mhm,
And I'm not exactly sure what the official textbook definition of infrasound is, but I'm thinking some kind of way they are manipulating magnetic fields that cause the body to react in a negative way. And if you think about it, when I was an engineer and I worked for energy, when we went out to high power transmission lines and we got anywhere near those high power transmission lines with those huge magnetic fields, bro, you could be out there under a line for 5 minutes and you feel like you're going to vomit and you're going to die because the magnetic fields were that strong.
mhm,
All the way down to if you went to a power substation and you stayed in the power substation too long, the magnetic fields in those substations made your body start to feel weird. So I'm saying, I
mhm,
guess I'm coming to the conclusion or saying that I think it has something to do with them manipulating magnetic fields, which would make sense why, if they're able to do something like that, why you can't
mhm,
capture them on camera all the time, why people do capture evidence and they look like they're different colors and how they can blend into different
mhm.
things. I don't know about the whole, cloaking thing that people say. I have no clue about that. I've never seen that. But
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, let me add something to that, Dark Waters, in regards to maybe the possibility of infrasound being part of the answer. Um, what we get into in the film is the emotional consequence of having your worldview stripped away in a second, and in less than a half a second. Sometimes, these sightings are usually very short, and yet the profound effect of what happens to these grown men, grown women, is something that is just, it's undeniable. I mean, everything changes for them after these encounters, and there's this psychological ramification of what happens to this trauma. What do you do with this trauma? What happens with your family? What happens with your job? What happens with this new addiction that possibly has sprung up in your life, or this new phobia or fear? A lot of guys quit hunting, permanently, and this is their lifelong passion and maybe career. Certainly, people that work in the lumber industry have to change careers instantly if they have an encounter and don't want to go back in the woods. So, I've talked to all sorts of people that have encountered those types of decisions, and to sit down with people in this documentary and go over the personal narrative story of what it's like to have to face those kind of consequences. It's quite something.
Were there any correlations in what's the best way to present this? Were there any direct correlations in situational scenarios like marriage situations, conditions of marriages, um, job situations, the condition of unemployment versus
Mm,
employment? Were there any kind of correlations that you guys were able to make amongst those witnesses? Anything that just stood out, like, okay, witness A is experiencing this, witness B is
Mhm.
experiencing this, and witness C is experiencing the same thing. Were you guys able to make any correlations amongst all your witnesses?
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, I got disconnected there for a second. Hopefully, I didn't screw things up. There definitely were some correlations. We started hearing a lot of the same experiences, at least the same descriptions. You know, I'm just trying to think of one example, and Toad might have a better idea just because he's been doing this a little bit longer. But I was trying to think of an example in the documentary. Um,
Of
I can just say this much, that people often will describe the same things, as if they've met each other and they've had a chance to talk to each other, and
Mhm.
and that's very common with
Mhm.
Bigfoot sightings experiences.
Well, and let's make it personal. In my case, I chose a whole new career path so I could listen to paranormal podcasts all day and drive in the backcountry of the Columbia River Gorge as a truck driver, prime Sasquatch habitat. And so I did start to pick jobs. In fact, I even worked as a remote fence builder in the remote wilderness for Weyerhaeuser, building wilderness fences for progeny trees are called, so I could work in Bigfoot habitat. Yes, there has been some interesting relationships along the way, based upon my new hobby, and most of my friends are Bigfooters. Certainly, my family's all had to take this ride with me along the way, but you know, there's just there's no way that I could have turned down this adventure. It was just an irresistible adventure. It's almost like I was born to look into it. I mean, there's a million other supernatural paranormal things a person could look into. And granted, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now that are way more important, I'm sure. But when you're in the midst of a Bigfoot hotspot, or sitting around talking Sasquatch like we're doing right now, for me, it's just the best damn time you could have. So, that's how I'm wired.
No, I'm with you guys, and some of the correlations that I was able to make with my witnesses that I was able to make is, for example, many of them that were having, I guess you would call them habitual experiences, where it's on the property and they're consistently having experiences at their property. It was a couple of things. One of them, there was always the presence of a child at the property, right? Literally, and that child was the first one to have interactions with these things, and it was always friendly. It always started off as friendly, and it was always like looking through the window at night or something really, really innocent. And based on the reaction of the adults to in that interaction between the Sasquatch and that child, it dictated the rest of that relationship for the entire family, with that, I wouldn't say clan, but with that Sasquatch that was there. I have five different cases of that where it happened that same way, and it just stuck out to me like a sore thumb. I'm like, wait, so you got a kid that's 12 years old, you have a kid that's 7, you have a kid that's 9, you have a kid that's 8, and then all the activity started with them looking in the kids' window or leaving gifts for the kids. None of the kids were actually touched or taken or anything negative done to them. And then the deviations and the variations in the scenario started happening. One father spazzed out and just started staying up at night trying to shoot things, and that just ended horribly bad for them. Um, One father, I feel like he went way too far because he started leaving apples and gifts and all the rest of that stuff. And then when he stopped, they spazzed out and went crazy on the house. And then the
Mm.
other families were like, okay, it's an imaginary friend, stop playing with your friend. And it talked the kid into severing the relationship to the point to where the kids were like, oh, they would see something, but they would ignore it as opposed to entertaining it.
Mhm.
And that didn't end bad. It just stopped, being bothered or bothering the kid. So I was looking to see if you guys had encountered anything like that. And if you haven't, just be trying to look for those
Mhm.
correlations because they're there. Some of the most important data that I think I've been able to glean is just by looking for those correlations from witness to witness. Like, for example, there was in the Dogman, Phil, bro, there is something about alcoholics in Dogman. Dogmen do not like alcoholics. They don't. Like, if you
Hmm.
are a violent drunk, they do not like you. It don't matter where you at in Florida, Mississippi, Texas, Oklahoma. There is something about a violent drunk. What I mean by violent, like the kind of person that gets drunk and screams and hollers and throws bottles and smokes cigarettes. Just if you are that type of person, you're in danger when it comes to
Hmm.
dog man. They don't have an appreciation for your behavior whatsoever. And I think it's about the behaviors that they don't like.
Hmm.
But I'm sorry, I'm rambling and running my
I
mouth.
came up with 5 or 6 here while you were talking, Dark Waters, on correlations here, and Brett, maybe you can bounce off this too. In
Yeah.
particular, the gifting process. These gifts seem to be gifts that are tailor made for individuals. They're gifts of significance. The experiences themselves, not only the gifting, go from small experiences or small gifts to larger gifts, larger experiences over time. Usually, humans seem to have dominion over setting boundaries and rules over these beings. That is to say, you can verbally talk to them and set boundaries on these properties, and they seem to listen to you. You have authority over that. They're usually seen while fleeing, not advancing. It's very rare in my case, hearing witnesses saying that this thing was advancing on them. And what one knows, they all seem to know. Like this hive mind seems to be prevalent. It's probably a prevalent theory too now. It's been out for a while, but I think for a good reason. This is a convergent reality that's happening. We're all coming to the same data points at once. And I think these creatures know individuals based upon no matter where you live, they all kind of share the same hive mind over it. So those are the things that keep coming up in my research with the Al Moon Lab, and certainly there's people in this documentary who I know would agree, including Henry Franzoni.
Yeah, and just to bounce off of that, there's a couple of things I want to bring up. The first is we interviewed Arla Williams in the film, and she's going to be featured in the second one too. And Arla's had a relationship with these beings going back to about the age of 5 years old. So I don't know exactly how old Arla is, but somewhere between 50 and possibly 60 years that she's been communicating with them and seeing them and interacting with them, and she considers them family. She has names for them. When you talk about the dominion, setting the dominion, there's a story about that Arla told us about her garden, and she noticed that all of her fruits and vegetables were going missing, and she knew it wasn't the deer. So she she pretty quickly figured out that it was the Sasquatch, the local tribe, if you will, and so she politely asked them to leave her half. She obviously cared about them and knew they were hungry and so on and so forth. So she said, "All right, just take half." And since she's had that conversation with him, I don't know if it was face to face or it was just through the woods. She's gotten half her crop, and the other half is neatly taken. And it's not like they're smashing watermelons and causing a ruckus. Nor did they protest or anything like that. But
Hmm.
it's funny. She told us another story about how she got home. She was with her grandson, and they had gone to McDonald's and gotten a Happy Meal, and they gotten I think it was one of those little packets of apples. And the grandson took the packet of apples out at her place and set two of the apples out of the package for the Sasquatch. And she said, "Well, what are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I'm leaving half for them." So I thought that was interesting. The other point I wanted to bring up real quick that kind of blew me away, that I've never heard, and Dark Waters, maybe you've heard it in some past interviews, and this kind of raised the hair on the back of my head and really got me thinking. We did an interview with a guy who's going to be featured in the sequel just this past weekend in Sacramento, and this story actually happened on Arla's property about 10 years ago, and he was out there with her in the dark, and he was having interactions with about five of these local Bigfoot, and he saw a woman in all white kind of coming towards him, and he thought it was a woman that was on the property at the same time. And he called her name, and she just literally just disappeared, just like that, instantly. And of course, later on that night, he asked her, he says, "Was that you?" And she says, "No, I've been here all along. I didn't go into the woods, nor would I." So I'm wondering if, I'm kind of wondering out loud if this electromagnetic energy or frequency that they're generating, and again, we're going to talk to more people about this, the science behind this, but is this something that's causing other phenomenon that's hiding behind this EMF
Mhm.
veil, if you will, to appear? Have you heard of any other stories of people seeing ghosts at the same time?
Yes. Out of this is west, north, south, east, west. This is west of Fort Pierce, Florida. Southwest of Fort Pierce, Florida. I was talking
Mm-hmm.
to a bunch of youngsters. They had to be in their late late 20s, and they were telling me about this Bigfoot encounter that they had. And they're on the back of their property. There's this pond, and so during the daytime they were out messing around on the side of the pond. Heard like limbs snapping and all the rest of this foolishness, crazy stuff going on. That's typical Bigfoot activity. Well, as the sun starts
Yeah.
going down, they see, not only do they see a Bigfoot, well, actually, before they see the Bigfoot, they see this woman in white that walks out into the pond. Like she just walking in a white dress. She walks out, walks into the water of the pond. They all run out there and they're like, "Yo, you going to get out our pond? What are you doing?" They're fussing at this woman for being in their pond. And there's like, "Yo, Dark," like she was in the pond and then she just disappeared. And they had surrounded her on all sides of the pond because they wanted to get her out of there. And these are young black kids, and he was like, "What this white woman doing in all pond and all white? She done lost her mind." He's spazzing out, and they surround her on all sides because they didn't want her to be able to get away. They wanted to get her and call the police. Well, she disappears, and then the one that's on the far back side of the pond, the dude who's closest to their wood line, starts to hear this breathing, turns around, and sees this huge, gigantic Bigfoot. He described as like 9 feet tall, and is looking at him. They all spaz out, run into the house, call the police. Police come. They trying to tell the police, and one of them was smart enough to say, "Man, you know what? There was just this white woman in our pond, and we don't know what happened to her." They didn't want to tell them about the Bigfoot and everything else because, like, man, they're gonna put us in a crazy, in a loony bin. So, yes, there's been that. There
Mm.
was one down in Lafitte, Louisiana, where it was directly correlated with a Bigfoot, where they saw a woman in white that was literally walking across the swamp. So, I'm gonna tell you guys what I think it is, based on the people that I've spoken to. Two theories. Well, three theories. First theory would be, people say that these things are interdimensional beings because they can come and go and they can be there 1 second and gone. And when you talk about interdimensional, you have to have a way to come into a dimension, right? So people throw terms around, but they don't break it down. If I'm telling you something's interdimensional, there has to be some kind of portal or some kind of opening for it to enter into this dimension. Let's just say there is truth to that, and then when that opens, other things come over as well. And it may not just be them. It could be a Bigfoot and some kind of spirit. It could be a demonic spirit. It could be a ghost. It could be any one of those things that cross over from that dimension. Then there's this other theory that I have. When you start talking about dominion, right? And you guys use the term specifically, you can exercise dominion over these things as it pertains to your property. And the very key portion, important word, is to your property. So, for example, I know witnesses who've executed. I mean, they've stood in the authority of their dominion as it pertains to Bigfoot and Dogman on their property. But once they get off the ownership, that plot of land that they own, there is no dominion because you don't own it. And I know guys who we've experimented with this. Like, say, bro, you've been seeing something outside your window. What I want you to do is go outside and say, "Hey, I take authority over this property in the name of Jesus Christ. This is mine. You cannot come here." And then it was almost as if there was an invisible boundary around that property on his property line where they would come up to the edge of that property and they would chill. They were never really aggressive. It's just the fact that you got a
Hmm.
monster staring in your window that scares the hell out of you. There's a girl, Wendy. I'm serious, like Wendy Wilson. Wendy was on with Wes Garmer years ago. She's got photos of portals opening up and things coming out of portals and everything. Wendy and her husband start exercising authority. Prior to them exercising authority, they would hear stuff tapping on their windows. She has videos of faces in her kind of living room where her, you know how you have like your fireplace in your living room and then you have the chute, the brick that goes up at the top of the fireplace. To the right and left at the top side of that, there's these triangular windows about 9 feet in the air. She would see these things looking at her through the window. And you would see the faces, you would see a
Hmm.
face, and it would morph to another face and all the rest of that. Well, they started exercising their authority and saying, look, you can't come here, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then that activity started to shift back into the woods on the backside of their property. Now, their negative encounters and experiences have all been associated once they went back off into those woods off of their property that they don't own. So I think I don't think, I know there's a spiritual law of dominion, and um, your dominion as a human being is based on what you own. And so I believe they follow the spiritual laws of dominion. And if that's the case, then it makes another correlation to the fact that, all right, why would you be following the spiritual laws put in place of dominion unless you understand those laws and you're subject to those laws? So I'm gonna stop right there because I'm rambling a little bit, but I really believe that there's a lot to this when you start getting
Mhm.
into the paranormal side or the supernatural side and the flesh and blood side, because you guys are taught the witnesses. They say they were there 1 minute and then they're gone the next minute, right? There's
Yep.
footprints that
Yep.
lead in a direction and then the footprints just disappear. Makes no sense, right? Well, if you tie it back to they have some kind of way of moving back and forth, do we know? Is it a freaking flying saucer? Hell, I don't know. I ain't seen no flying saucer. But I do know what I'm saying makes a hell of a lot of sense when you start talking to witnesses.
It
Right.
does. It does make a lot of sense. And Tob, was it you that told us the story about the family that you knew or somebody knew that were having problems on their property and the advice they got was to put a cross up? Did I hear
No,
that from you?
that wasn't me, but of course, I've heard that before where people put the blood of Christ over their property and suddenly the Bigfoot activity stops. However, it never came to that in the case of the Al Moon Lab. It was mainly the property damage that was ticking off the new homeowners. And in which case I spoke to another extended experiencer, I believe in Montana, and she said, well, you have to speak to them like they're rowdy teenagers that need to get a clue and set boundaries around your house and let them know that they can't come back if they start breaking stuff. And so that's exactly what we did. We walked out to the edge of the woods and we said exactly what I just said. And previous to that, there was some damage to the metal post in the backyard, which were made of wrought iron, and they were bent down about 20-30 degree angle, and within a couple of days those wrought iron pipes were straightened up and pretty much all the property damage had ceased to exist. And throughout this documentary you will hear the beginning, the burgeoning story of these witness testimony that is leading to a direction where we talk dark waters talk. And once we get there, it'll be a beautiful thing. And we're just not quite there yet, but it's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think it's. Let me ask you guys another question. I'm trying to. I want to ask questions, but I don't want to dig too deep in the documentary because I want people to watch it. So I don't want you.
Mm.
All right. So I know we got a number of witnesses we've interviewed, and we alluded to the effects that these encounters that typically last seconds have on a person for the rest of their lives, right? Um, what's the best way to put this? Give me one example of a traumatic change. Not, and we're not the normal traumatic change. The normal traumatic change is, oh, I saw something in the woods, scared the hell out of me. I'm not going in the woods anymore. That's par for the course. That's like, that's like shooting a little. That's like putting on a green. That's
Mm.
an easy one. Give me an example
Oh
of
yeah.
one that's a little more out there, an interaction or reaction that was a little bit further out there that you guys are like, whoa, I can't believe a person took it that way or it made them behave that way.
Mm. You want that one?
Mhm. Okay. Okay. You asked for it. Um, and and I think, and what I'm about to say has got some spoilers, but it's okay because people need to watch this. So, a gentleman by the name of Daryl Wilson, um, I met at Phenomicon. We met, I should say. Both Jill and I met at Phenomicon last September. And long story short, Daryl was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He had melanoma. It had spread through his entire body. They removed what they could, which included about oh, a good sized chunk or skull cap, I guess. I mean, they literally took off his skull and took as much out of his off his brain as they possibly could, and then took some flesh from his stomach and patched up his head. And he's got a huge piece there, which he shows on film. It's not graphic, don't worry. But Daryl, his daughter and his grandchildren lived up in Alaska, and they lived clear out in a remote part of Alaska in a little village called St. Mary's. His son-in-law was an Alaskan state trooper, and they were the only Gusik, which is what the Inuits up there call them. They call the white folks. They were the only white folks in this village, and maybe even for hundreds of square miles. But Daryl and his wife came up there, and Daryl knew that he had maybe 6 to 8 weeks to live, and they just wanted to have fun. He just wanted to live life as much as he possibly could, as anybody would in their final days. And they were out fishing on the Andreski River, and they had a sighting. And I'll leave the details out of the sighting because it's literally one of the most extraordinary sightings I've ever heard. And what that did to Daryl was a complete and total transformation. And I don't want to allude, at least in my opinion, I don't want to allude that the Bigfoot healed Daryl. That's a whole nother conversation or another whole nother show. But what I do believe happened is the kind of change that some people have in their lives that could be negative happened to Daryl in a very much positive way. And the conditions were perfect, and what he witnessed was nothing short of extraordinary to him. He was a non-believer. I mean, he didn't believe in Bigfoot. And this is a guy that's in his late 50s, early 60s. I mean, and a very religious man too. He's an LDS, and suffice to say that this sighting gave Daryl a whole new purpose in life, and saved his life. So that to me was a very dramatic
Mm.
change. And when you see the movie, you'll see the rest of the story. But that was something that I came away from, and everybody that's seen it comes away from very emotionally charged from that witness account.
Yeah, that's one hell of an eyewitness encounter. That really, really is. Well, all right, guys, we're running out of time, and I want to tell you right now, and I'm gonna prove it to you. I just bought the documentary on Amazon. I'm serious, I
Okay.
did. I just bought it because I plan on watching it tonight. Um, Now here's what we got to figure out. I'm on Amazon. If I click this share button, let's see, copy link. I should be able to share this out to everybody right now, right? Let me go to
Cool.
my channel. Let me stop it before it starts making noise. Let me go to community because I want to do this while we're on the line. Buy this now, or else I will cut off your head,
I
or
like that.
else.
You're now part of the promotion team because I like this tactic. I think this
All
is
Hmm.
right.
it's going to get the numbers way up.
All right, so I just promoted it on my community tab. What I'm gonna do is there a way for me over the next couple of days to buy a certain or rent it a certain number of times for people to watch that are like do a giveaway. I say, okay, guys, I'm gonna buy what is it, $3.99. Let's say I do 10 of these where I buy 10 people access to your documentary that are a part of my members only group. Is there a way to do that?
That's a great question. I don't know, but we can certainly find out and get right back to you. If there's a
Yeah,
way that you can like gift it or
yeah,
something.
yeah. Because I would gift it to people, and that way it's putting revenue in your pocket, it's supporting what you're doing, and I know once they watch it, they're gonna run around and tell everybody and their mama to watch it. But sometimes you know how
Yeah.
the paranormal community is; they tightwad. So sometimes you gotta break open your wallet before they start breaking open their wallet. They tightwads, bro. I'm telling you. They know it. I ain't saying nothing new. They know exactly how they behave. They be like, "Oh, this
Hey, man.
documentary should be free." Hell no, it shouldn't be free. You know how much money I spent trying to put this together. So,
Yeah.
We had a
look into
review
it
on
for me.
Amazon that said it should be free. Which if you wait long enough, it's eventually going to end up on the quote unquote free site ad supported sites. But that's going to be a minute. That may not happen even until next year, early next year. I don't have an exact date, but if you're interested in Bigfoot, you want to see this documentary now. You really do, and um, I want to assure everybody that I believe that it's definitely worth your time and definitely worth your money to check it out and watch it, because you're going to see and hear things and meet people that you've never seen and heard before. And I think it's just going to stoke that fire that much more when you take a look at it. So yeah, we'll look into trying to figure out how we can get you to gift some rentals out there for some folks that are
Mhm.
interested in seeing it.
No, absolutely. Figure that out for me, and I'll do it, bro. Because I'm telling you, I've said this over and over. My friend Tony Merkel did his Dogman documentary. It ended up getting like a 500,000 views, and it's crazy. But the way I feel about it is, the people who are working in the community, the people who are talking to the witnesses, they should be the ones that are elevated to actually be in the public's eye. It shouldn't be just like the Travel Channel picks up this one guy, and they give him this big old budget, and he runs around the world and says, "Oh, I saw a ghost. I saw this." No, you need to use the people who are actively in the community, hands on, talking to people. And if we just support each other the way we should, then somebody's going to elevate to that point. And then when that person gets there, then we need to say, "Yo, bro, homeboy, we got your back. Now we're going to need you to drop the ladder down for the rest of us." But we got to get somebody up
Hmm.
there, man. And so if there's anything I can do to help people get up there, bro, I'm all about it. Then when you're up there, I'm be like,
We
"Yo,
appreciate it.
drop that ladder for your boy. I'm down here waiting."
Drop that line.
All right,
I love
guys.
it.
Tell everybody how they can find you if they want to contact you, because there's a lot of eyewitnesses that listen here. So tell
Mm.
them how they
Yeah.
contact you if they want to talk to you about being in a future documentary, especially if you're going to start talking about the supernatural stuff. Because got some people got some
Yeah.
weird stuff going on, bro.
Yeah, yeah, and we're actually headed down. If some of your listeners are down in Texas and Louisiana, we're planning on heading down there probably this fall to talk to a guy who saw Bigfoot and a Dogman at the same time. And I'll leave it at that. The best way to get a hold of us is bigfootdoc.com, bigfootdoc.com, and there's a contact us link there. You can also buy a wide variety of merch that the profits of which go to support the sequel production. So you can get a hat, you can get a mug, you can get really really comfy hoodies and sweatshirts and all kinds of stuff. Um, so that's really the best way of getting a hold of us.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with me and swimming in the dog waters when the supernatural aspect of it comes out. Just come back. Let's chop it up. I'm gonna watch this tonight. I'm about to hop in the shower, lay in the bed. I'm about to watch this documentary. It's gonna give me something to watch,
Cool.
and then I'll reach back out to you guys. I appreciate you coming and hanging out with me, man. I told you guys we're gonna have a good time. It's just a matter of getting the engine warm, and we hit it off just like I knew we would, man. Because we're all
Yeah,
we think the same way about this.
this was a lot of fun. A lot of fun, and
Yeah, it was.
I know Tobin and I will be anxious to come back.
All right, guys. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it's the one and only Dog Waters. I'm out of here. Now, listen to me good when I say this. I'm gonna talk like this guy down here, Pastor Littleton, that used to be on the radio. He said, listen to me good now, listen to me good, James. I want you to listen to this. I want you guys to go out and at least rent this documentary. I'm gonna put the link. It's $3.99. Don't be a cheapskate. You guys know what it takes for people to be successful in this industry. And then, if you're a part of my audience, you already know that it takes money to make money, and it takes money in order to get this information. You paid $4 a month for Dogman cams. You paid $5 a month for IamDogWaters.com. Hook these brothers up, spend some money with them, show them some love, because that's what they need. Now, I know nobody else is going to sell it like I'm selling it, and I'm going to tell y'all why, because I've lived what they're doing right now. And I know it takes money to make things happen. So open up your wallet. It's $3. It's less than a hamburger. I mean, it's less than a meal at McDonald's at this point in time with the inflation, because a Big Mac meal at McDonald's is $9. So you ain't got no excuse. It's less than a gallon of gas, to be honest with you. So come on, bro. Handle your business, ladies and gentlemen. It's the one and only Dog Waters. I'm out of here, and I will see you guys later.